All right, get ready because today we're diving into a case from Iceland,
Excellent.
a place not really known for, crime sprees,
Right.
really peaceful, quiet, very, very low crime rates.
Yeah, safe and sound.
But back in 1974, that peace and quiet was shattered when two men just vanished.
Just disappeared.
And to make things even more interesting, they were two very different men.
Yeah, it's a strange one. You've got, on the one hand, Guðmundur Einarsson, 18 years old, the life of the party, always surrounded by friends.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, Geirfinnur Einarsson, no relation, by the way. She was 32, a quiet family man.
So two completely different lives.
Two completely different lives, yeah.
But both gone without a trace.
It is a mystery.
So let's start with the basics. Like, what were the circumstances of their disappearances?
Well, so you've got to imagine this.
Yeah.
It's a blizzard, a raging blizzard in Hafnarfjörður.
Oh, wow.
And Guðmundur, he's last seen leaving a nightclub.
Uh-oh.
Just steps out into this blinding snowstorm, never to be seen again. And then Geirfinnur. He gets this mysterious phone call, heads out to a cafe, practically empty, and poof.
Gone.
Gone.
No witnesses. Nothing.
It's like they were swallowed by the Icelandic landscape,
So it's like they were searching for clues, but it sounds like there was just nothing.
It was a very tough case, the initial investigation.
Right, yeah, in a country where serious crime's practically unheard of.
Right.
I mean, how do you even begin to unravel something like that?
Yeah, and you got to remember, the police were under immense pressure.
Oh, yeah.
Families desperate for answers. The whole nation was on edge.
Yeah, of course.
And then there's this.
Why?
Despite no bodies ever being found, 6 people confessed to their murders.
Wait, what? 6 people?
Yeah.
But no bodies.
It's what became known as the Reykjavík Confessions.
Oh, wow.
It's this tangled web of accusations, retractions, and constantly changing stories.
Yeah. Oh, man. So how did they even get to that point? Like, how did those confessions even come about?
Well, it all started with a woman named Erla Bolladóttir. She was the girlfriend of one of the suspects, Sivar Cisielski.
Okay.
Now, Erla, while being held in solitary confinement,
Oh, boy.
she confessed to seeing a body
Body.
being removed from her apartment the night that Guðmundur disappeared.
Oh, wow. So was she involved?
Well, that's what they initially thought, right?
Yeah.
But you got to consider the context.
Yeah. Okay.
Here she is, isolated, under incredible psychological pressure.
Right.
And the police, they were using these very intense interrogation tactics.
Oh, no. Like, what were they doing?
Well, everything. Sleep deprivation,
Yeah.
Drugging, all sorts of things.
I mean, you can't help but think, how reliable can any statement be under those conditions?
Exactly. It's really tough to say.
Yeah.
And this is where something called memory distrust syndrome comes into play.
Okay. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So imagine you're in solitary, you're stressed, sleep deprived, constantly being bombarded with suggestions and questions.
Right.
You start to doubt your own memories.
Yeah.
And then you become susceptible to what you're being told,
Right.
even if it's not the truth.
So you're saying she might have started believing what the police were telling her,
Even if it wasn't her actual memory.
even if it wasn't what she really saw.
Exactly.
It's not even about lying then.
No, not necessarily.
It's about like being, I don't know.
The power of suggestion.
Yeah, yeah.
And how fragile memory can be under those conditions.
And the pressure from those interrogation tactics.
Yeah, the coercion.
Yeah, that's disturbing.
It's a tough situation.
What about the other suspects? Were they treated the same way?
Sadly,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, no.
One of the accused, a man named Tryggi Leifsson,
Okay.
he actually kept diaries while he was in prison.
Wow.
And those entries, they paint a very harrowing picture
Really?
of the conditions they endured, the isolation, the sleep deprivation, the psychological manipulation. It was brutal.
So we have like firsthand accounts of how intense these interrogations were.
Yeah, we did.
And I mean, did these tactics actually lead to more confessions?
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's really the heart of the matter.
Right.
These intense, unethical interrogation techniques, they created an environment where false confessions were almost inevitable.
I mean, when you put it that way, it makes you think.
Think about it. You're isolated, you're terrified, you're desperate for the whole thing to end.
Yeah.
Confessing, even if you didn't do it,
Right.
it might start to feel like the only way out.
It's a scary thought, innocent people, under that kind of duress, just admitting to something to escape a horrible situation.
It is. It is.
But did those confessions, did they actually hold up in court?
You'd be surprised.
Really?
These 6 individuals, based only on those confessions.
No physical evidence.
Nothing. No physical evidence whatsoever.
Wow.
They were given really harsh sentences.
So their lives are completely upended, reputations tarnished,
Yeah.
all based on words extracted under duress.
It's a difficult situation for sure.
Yeah. It's hard to believe something like that could happen, especially in a country like Iceland.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the public's reaction to all of this?
It was a huge deal for Iceland.
Yeah.
Like, imagine a nation known for its peacefulness suddenly facing this.
This dark chapter.
It was a huge shock.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
About the systems we have in place and how things can go wrong. Yeah, and how easily they can be manipulated.
Right, exactly.
So what happened to these people, I mean, after they were sentenced?
Well, they tried to rebuild their lives,
Hmm.
carrying this weight of these convictions.
Right.
And some people, they never stopped believing in their innocence.
Wow, so it's like a wound that never really healed
It was a shadow that hung over them.
over them and over Icelandic society.
Yeah, for decades.
There's got to be more to this story, though.
Oh, there is. There is.
Right. Like something must have happened to change the course of this case.
You're right.
What was it? What happened?
Well, years later, Tryggi's daughter, Christine Leifson, she made a decision that changed everything.
What did she do?
She decided to share her father's prison diaries
With who?
with a journalist, Helga Arnardóttir.
Wow, those first-hand accounts finally coming to light.
Yeah, and it really was a turning point.
I bet. So what happened next?
Well, those diaries, they were filled with these chilling details, of the interrogation tactics, the psychological toll it took on her father.
Yeah,
And they really brought this whole new perspective to the case.
I can imagine.
They revealed these inconsistencies in the confessions.
Oh, wow.
Hints of police misconduct, these cracks in the narrative that had been accepted as truth for so long.
So, like, those diaries became like a catalyst for a whole re-examination of the case.
Exactly. Experts started to scrutinize the original investigation,
Okay.
going over those confessions with a fine-tooth comb.
Right.
And what they found,
Well, it's pretty shocking.
shocking, huh? So, like, what did they find? What were these shocking revelations? Well, what they uncovered was a classic case of what we call, tunnel vision in investigations.
Okay, so, like, explain that. What do you mean by tunnel vision?
It's when the police, they're under so much pressure to solve a case,
Right.
especially like a high-profile case like this
Yeah.
one. They get so fixated on one idea, on one theory,
Okay.
that they miss other possibilities, other explanations.
So they were so focused on these 6 people being dead
Yeah.
that they overlooked other things.
It did. And that's the danger of tunnel vision. You get this confirmation bias
Information bias.
where you're only seeing what you want to see
Right.
and you're interpreting the evidence, twisting it even, to fit your theory.
Ignoring anything that doesn't fit.
Exactly. Even if it means ignoring or downplaying evidence that contradicts what they believe.
Wow. And that's what happened here.
It seems like it, yeah.
So what exactly did they find? Like, what specific flaws in the original investigation?
Well, the big one, of course, was those coerced confessions.
Yeah, we talked about that.
The experts, they concluded that those interrogation tactics, they were way too suggestive, way too coercive.
So those confessions, the foundation of the whole case,
Yeah,
were now being called into question.
big time.
And there was no physical evidence linking any of them to the crimes, right?
Nope, none at all.
No DNA, no fingerprints, nothing like that.
No witnesses placing them at the scene, nothing.
It's incredible.
It was all based on those confessions, and now those are looking very unreliable.
Wow. So what about Guðmundur and Geirfinnur? Did they learn anything new about what might have happened to them?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
With the focus shifting away from those 6, new theories started to emerge.
New theories. Okay, lay it on me.
Remember those treacherous lava fields around Hafnarfjörður?
Yeah.
Full of craters, crevices, all hidden under the snow?
It's a dangerous landscape.
It is, and some experts, they theorize that maybe Guðmundur, leaving that nightclub in the blizzard, possibly intoxicated. Maybe he just lost his way
Oh.
and succumbed to the elements.
That's a possibility.
It's tragic, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, given those harsh Icelandic winters.
Right. Yeah.
Geirfinnur's disappearance, though, that's even more of a puzzle.
Right. He got that phone call.
Right, and one theory suggests he might have been involved in something shady.
Shady.
Yeah, like the criminal underworld. Smuggling, maybe?
Smuggling in Iceland.
Well, you got to remember, Iceland back then had some strict alcohol regulations.
Okay.
So there was this black market for certain spirits.
So maybe that phone call, the trip to the cafe,
Could have been related to some smuggling operation.
and his car was found unlocked, keys in the ignition.
Right, like he left in a hurry.
Maybe forced to leave?
Exactly, maybe under duress. But of course, it's all speculation without more evidence.
Right, so we have these new theories, but they don't really solve the mystery.
No, they don't.
So what happened? Did the convictions stand or...
Well, those revelations about the investigation, the confessions, the lack of evidence, it had a huge impact.
I can imagine.
And in 2018, after years of campaigning,
Bye-bye.
by the convicted, by their families, by human rights advocates, the Icelandic Supreme Court made a decision.
They overturned the convictions.
They did 44 years after those men disappeared.
Wow.
Those 6 individuals, they were finally exonerated.
It's hard to even fathom what that must have been like for them.
It was a moment of vindication. For them, for justice itself.
Yeah, but even with the convictions overturned, we still don't know what really happened.
We don't. That's the haunting part of it, you know.
The Reykjavík Confessions, they brought justice for those wrongly convicted.
Yeah.
But the truth about those disappearances, it's still out there.
It is still a mystery.
And beyond those individual cases, this whole thing had a massive impact on Iceland, didn't it?
Absolutely. It was a national reckoning.
Yeah.
Like they had to confront some uncomfortable truths about their own justice system.
So what changed? What lessons were learned from all of this?
Well, for one, they realized they couldn't rely so heavily on confessions.
Especially those obtained under duress.
Especially those, they realized they needed a more evidence-based approach.
Okay, I like that. So no more convictions based just on someone's word.
That's the idea, yeah.
So how did they change things, practically speaking?
Well, they implemented a whole bunch of reforms.
Like what?
Well, for one, remember those recordings we talked about?
Yeah, the interrogation recording.
They made those mandatory.
For all interrogations.
Yeah, all of them. So no more relying on just handwritten notes or, the word of the officers.
Right, right.
Everything is documented, a clear record of what happened.
That's huge.
It is. It increases transparency, helps ensure fairness.
And that those tactics we talked about, they can be identified.
Exactly, and addressed. It's a crucial safeguard against false confessions.
I'm glad they did that. Were there other reforms too?
They also strengthened the right to legal counsel during interrogations.
Okay, that's important.
So suspects have access to a lawyer from the very beginning.
Makes sense. Helps level the playing field a little bit.
It does. It ensures they understand their rights and that they have someone advocating for them right from the start.
That's good. It sounds like they really took this seriously.
They did. They had to. It shook their nation to its core.
Yeah. What about the public's trust? Did that ever recover?
Well, it's hard to say. It definitely had an impact.
I bet.
The Reykjavík Confessions, they really shook people's faith in the authorities.
Right. It showed that even in a country like Iceland, with its low crime rates and peaceful reputation, these things can happen.
Exactly. That even there, innocent people can be unjustly punished.
So it wasn't just about changing the laws, it was about rebuilding trust.
Yeah, about acknowledging that the system isn't perfect, that mistakes can be made.
And taking steps to earn back that trust.
Exactly. It's an ongoing process for sure.
Those scars run deep.
They do. They do.
It's a reminder of how fragile justice can be.
And the importance of constantly being vigilant, safeguarding individual rights.
So what about those 6 people? What happened to them after they were exonerated?
It was tough, trying to rebuild your life after decades of carrying that weight.
The weight of those convictions, yeah.
They got financial compensation from the government.
Okay.
But no amount of money can truly erase what they went through.
That's true. No amount of money can give them back those years.
It can't. And it's a reminder of the human cost of wrongful conviction.
The ripple effects that go far beyond the courtroom.
It affects families, communities. It's a powerful reminder.
Of what?
That justice is about more than just punishing the guilty.
Right.
It's also about protecting the innocent.
Yeah, and the Reykjavík Confessions, they really highlight that.
They do. They show us that the pursuit of justice has to be tempered with compassion.
Yeah.
And an understanding that we're not infallible, that we can make mistakes.
Well said. Before we wrap up, there's one more thing I want to touch on.
Okay.
It's the psychological aspect of all this.
Oh, yeah.
Those confessions, given under such intense pressure, it really makes you think about memory. about the power of suggestion, about how vulnerable we are under stress.
You're right. It's a whole other layer to this story.
And it goes way beyond just criminal justice.
It does. It has implications for all of us.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
how could these people confess to crimes they didn't commit? What's going on in their heads?
Yeah, it's a question that's fascinated psychologists and legal experts for years.
And I mean, each case is different, of course.
Right.
But are there, like, I don't know, common threads?
Oh, definitely. There are these psychological factors that can make false confessions more likely, especially when you've got those high-pressure interrogations.
So it's not just lying, there's more to it.
Way more to it, yeah.
Okay, so, like, what are we talking about here?
Well, think back to those diaries from Tryggy Leifson, right? The isolation, the sleep deprivation, the constant questioning, it all adds up.
Yeah, it's like they were trying to break him down.
That's exactly it. Those tactics, they're designed to wear a person down, make them more vulnerable, more susceptible to suggestion.
So they're more likely to say what they think the interrogators want to hear.
Exactly, even if it's not true.
So it's like confessing becomes a way to just survive the situation.
In a way, yeah, it's not always about deception, it's about coping, finding a way out of a horrible experience.
But wouldn't they realize, like, confessing has huge consequences?
You think so, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, those interrogation tactics, they can be really insidious. They can lead to something called internalization.
Internalization?
Yeah, where the suspect starts to doubt their own memories.
Oh, wow.
They're being fed all this suggestive questioning, misinformation, and eventually they start to believe they might actually be guilty,
Even if they didn't do it.
even if the evidence doesn't support it.
That's terrifying.
It is. It shows just how powerful suggestion can be, how fragile our memories are, especially under stress.
So basically, just being interrogated, under those conditions, it can actually warp your perception of reality.
Yeah, it's a documented phenomenon.
Wow. It really makes you think about how we understand truth, you know? Like, what we believe to be true might not actually be the case.
It's a huge challenge, and it highlights how important it is to have safeguards in place to protect people during interrogations.
Right. So what can we do to prevent these false confessions?
Well, the Reykjavík Confessions, they were a wake-up call, not just for Iceland, but for the world.
Yeah.
It showed that we need a more evidence-based approach.
Meaning?
Confessions should be treated carefully. They need to be backed up by physical evidence.
So no more convictions based solely on someone's word,
Ideally,
even if it sounds convincing.
even then. And remember those reforms we talked about. The recordings, the access to lawyers, those are all crucial.
Yeah, they make the process more transparent, more fair.
Exactly. It's all about minimizing the risk of false confessions, protecting people's rights.
It sounds like Iceland really learned from this.
They did. And it's a lesson for all of us.
So, thinking about all of this, can we ever really eliminate false confessions completely?
It's tough to say. Human behavior is complicated.
Yeah.
There will always be people who, for whatever reason, confess to things they didn't do.
Right.
But by understanding the psychology behind it, by improving our methods, by having strong safeguards in place, we can make the system more just, more humane.
And hopefully get closer to the truth.
Exactly.
It's been a fascinating deep dive, this case, the Reykjavík Confessions. It really makes you think about justice, about truth, about how easily things can go wrong.
It does. It shows how important it is to question our assumptions, to be aware of our own biases.
To keep searching for the full story, even when it's hard.
Especially when it's hard.
Well, thank you for taking this deep dive with me today.
Of course, always a pleasure.
And to our listeners, keep those minds curious, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.